Okay, this next application is a peer-to-peer messenger. It's a little bit different than the chat room that we did earlier. This program sends data over a network connection, either across the internet or across the local network connection. It opens up an IP address and a port and sends the data across that raw HTTP port, and it lets the two versions of the program communicate. This program just sends text data, but you can also use these techniques to send binary files. You'll see that this example came a bit from code that was in this link on the page. Uses some of this code here and the basic idea of opening a port, waiting for data, and then having another version of the program open the port to send data. There's an example below here in the cookbook that also lets you, or shows you how to send binary files. And in order to do this, you're going to need to have a server version of the program and a client version of the program. And the server version needs to have a port open. If you want to use this across the internet, you need to have a port open. If you're not familiar with networking, you might want to check out this website, portforward.com. That shows you how to open ports on your router. And that's necessary for any type of connected networking type of application that needs to share data. Any sort of program that requires a server and a client will need to have ports open. The way this starts out, again, there's the typical header. We've got a little flag variable here that we use to check throughout the program whether or not we are connected. We start that initially to false, so that set that initially so that the program and we know in the program whether or not the application is connected. And there's a similar shutdown function to what you've seen in the last example. This sort of same template. It searches for, or always waits for, a close type event. It waits for the user to hit the close button, and when that happens, if we are connected, so we're going to use that variable above, it'll send this little message through the port that we have open. That will happen later in the program. This text, and you'll notice the text is backwards because it needs to send each of these lines one at a time. When it appears on the other person's screen, it will appear in the opposite order. This line will come down first, and this one will go on top of it. This one will go on top of it. So they actually appear in a readable order. And it shuts down the port. It shuts down the application, quits. So that just watches for the user to close the program and sends a message to the other person when that happens, so that they know that the other person has been disconnected. Then we have a view layout. We can call this GUI, this layout GUI, in case we need to reference it. Let's send it on the screen. And we're using the view new option, which waits until the entire GUI has been created, and then at the very end, you'll see there's a at the bottom, do events, which is required whenever you use that new refinement. That starts the GUI up. And in the GUI, many typical bits of GUI code and widgets that you've seen before. Items are going to appear crossed, and at this pixel location, there's going to be a text item. This is going to appear sort of as a menu item. When the user clicks on that, it will save the text that's in a display widget that we're going to create later. It will save that text to the file name that we get from the user, the request from the user. There's another, what appears to the user as a menu item, that allows the user to look up their current IP. In case they don't know it, they can tell the other user what it is. And this uses Rebel's parse facility, which we're going to cover in later examples. Basically, it goes out to whatismyip.com, checks the IP, gets the IP, and then it puts it into a little window or a little alert message. Puts that IP in. It also puts the internal IP, the local IP on your local network, by reading the DNS of the local machine. That's the format that you use to get your local IP address. There's also another menu item. These again are all across the top. When the user clicks on the help button, it puts a big alert message up that tells the user how to use the program. And then there's a return, which now puts the next widgets onto the next line. And there's a field here, which by default has the text localhost. It's 102 pixels across. A little header. And this is where we're going to get the IP information from the user. We're going to connect between IP addresses. And also it will get a port. By default it's going to be 9083, and that will appear in that field. That field is 50 pixels across, and it's called, we'll label it port spec. The IP field is called IP. And then there's a rotary button. And it has two options, client mode and server mode. When the user clicks on this, there's an either conditional evaluation. If it says client mode, it shows label 1, which we said which contained the text IP address. And if it's not client mode, it hides that, and that's just to help the user from being confused. They don't need to put in an IP address if they're in server mode, if they're waiting for a connection. If they're in client mode, they're going to have to put in an IP address to connect to.